Gayle Saunders here with Erock. We're fourth and John. Talking all the big moves, man. I mean, it was going down on the TL. Howie Roseman doing big things, bringing in the Jacksons from the jump. How are you feeling about the move so far?
I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. I feel like the moves that they've done so far make just a ton of sense for the Birds and really address a couple key areas of need in ways that when you look back on the 2018 season and the way it transpired and kind of the overall struggles that the teams went through, number one was Timmy Jernigan was missing. That was a huge part of the defensive line, which ended up having a trickle-down effect to the rest of the team. You could especially see it in that New Orleans game, the first one, where when you take a look at the Dallas Cowboys versus the Saints, the interior pressure, messed up Drew Brees, and that's how the Cowboys ended up winning that game. The Eagles just didn't have that interior other presence besides Fletcher Cox, who led the team in sacks despite being double-teamed almost every single play. Now you've got a guy in Malik who can win his one-on-one matchups. And really, if you're going to slide coverage or slide protection to Fletcher Cox's side, if you have another guy, another interior defensive lineman that can win his one-on-one matchup, that's monstrous for the defensive line. And then that plays down to the linebackers, and that affects the way the corners have to cover, so on and so forth. Gayle, how many times did we look at this team and say the Eagles were this close to getting to the quarterback?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, like having that guy right next to Fletcher Cox that can provide that kind of pressure isn't so important. I think Malik Jackson gives you also a perfect piece that fits monetarily. I mean, you're talking about taking that money away that you were going to give Jernigan. You now put it into a guy who's a little bit older, but he's pretty productive, and you got him for 3 years, $30 million. Another move, which a lot of people have been wanting for a long time. DeSean Jackson is back wearing Eagles green. How are you feeling about that?
For the last couple of years, whether it's the truth or whether I'm doing it just to egg the timeline along and poke fun at some people, I've been saying that DeSean should come back home. DeSean should come back home. And really, there's no negative to this. The Eagles have had a formula in place over the last couple of years, and it's sort of been successful, and it sort of hasn't been successful, where they bring in an older veteran wide receiver just to fill that speed role. They did it with Torrey Smith during the Super Bowl run. Did they win the Super Bowl? Yes. Was it overall successful? I don't know. That could be argued. Torrey Smith didn't have a gigantic impact on the offense. Cleared up some space for Zach Ertz and Alshon Jeffrey and stuff like that. Last year, it was supposed to be your guy, Mike Wallace, man. We were all excited about Mike Wallace joining the team. It was an upgrade over Torrey Smith. Obviously, it goes down in that game against, what was it, Tampa?
Yeah, Tampa. I mean,
it goes down in the game against Tampa, and that was a wrap there. So Mike Wallace was supposed to be the better Torrey Smith. I think that DeSean Jackson coming home is going to be the better Mike Wallace, who was the better to Torrey Smith. And look, we're not asking this dude to be a volume guy. That's not his role. He doesn't have to catch 80 passes a year. But what he has to do is, Gayle, you and I talked about this yesterday, they're doubling Zach Ertz, and they're playing press on Alshon. So if DeSean's lined up on Zach Ertz's side, what's the safety going to do? Does he commit to doubling Zach Ertz? Does he play DeSean and Zach in the middle? I mean, Zach's going to win that battle against 80% of the strong side linebackers in the league. Probably 7 out of 10 times, and against the other 20%, he's going to win it half the time.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have the safety commit to Zach, and then you're going to make the mistake of leaving DeSean Jackson one-on-one, which all he needs to do is break open once. He just needs to break open loose once a game, go deep, score, bing, it's over.
I mean, the key thing is you're keeping defenses honest. Like when you don't have a burner on the field that doesn't stretch the field, you're allowing safeties to creep up in the box, safeties to pay attention to Zach Ertz, who we all know that Carson Wentz loves. But you're looking at a guy who stretches the field. At his age last year, he led the league, 18.9 yards per catch. If you go back to looking at Mike Wallace in 2017, he was a 14.4 yards per catch, and if you go back to Torrey Smith with the Eagles in our Super Bowl run, he was at 11.9. So you get what you pay for. You really get what you pay for. The Eagles have been trying to replace the production from DeSean Jackson over the last since 2014 with him leaving. I think you got a guy who's hungry, wants a championship, but at the end of the day, that's what he does. That's where DeSean Jackson wins. He's a real deal vertical threat. So you can't take that away from him. But other than that, I mean, the Eagles started to take care of their own. The guy we call Yoda, Jason Peters. How do you like that deal?
Wait, yeah. Before we move on to Jason Peters, just something, because Trox and I had the opportunity to go down to the NovaCare complex last night. Speak. It was a season ticket holder event called Chalk Talk, and one of the speakers who was up in front of the NovaCare breaking down film was the assistant running backs coach, so the assistant to Deuce Staley. And he was breaking down basically the RPO and what to look for, and it was just a wealth of knowledge that I don't think anybody really in depth kind of knows about the RPO game. But one of the things he said was that in 2016, when Doug Peterson took over, there was like 2 RPOs in the entire playbook. In 2017, when they won the Super Bowl, defenses have such a hard time defending it that 70% of the playbook was RPOs. And then in 2018 season, defenses started to catch it because defenses didn't really know how to react to it. You had guys dropping back into coverage when running backs were getting the ball in their belly. Defenses didn't know how to defend it. So one of the things the defense started doing is playing straight man across the board, because what that'll do is kind of get them closer to the line of scrimmage for the run, and then if you try to go pass, you're disrupting the timing. When you have a guy like DeSean Jackson, a speed burner, remember how last year we were talking about the separation? Nobody was getting separation. Alshon wasn't getting separation. Nelly wasn't getting separation. Even Golden Tate wasn't getting separation. So when you have a guy that can win his one-on-one matchup against man-to-man coverage, now all of a sudden it makes the defense think twice about playing zone, which is advantageous to the so like the way he was breaking it down is DeSean Jackson. We can talk about the yards per catch average. We can talk about him coming home and how Kelly and Trust piece about that. DeSean Jackson on the field speaks to what you just said, which is keeping the defenses honest. And if you do that, the RPO game will take off. And I just wanted to add that in because that was fresh news yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, also if you get a running back who actually threatens to do damage in the run, I mean, you got a guy like Josh Adams, Wendell Smallwood. Are they really going to do damage in the run? Are they going to be fast enough to beat you to the edge? You know, that's what we're hoping that we get a running back during this offseason or the draft.
Man, I don't want to gloss over you. Let's talk about your
Jason Peters, man, 5.5 guaranteed. The deal's worth up to 10, so you're basically paying him to stay healthy. He'll get that whole $10 million if he stays healthy. I felt like solidifying the left tackle spot going into the draft. You get one more year out of Jason Peters. I think Jason Peters at 80% or maybe 90% is better than tons of tackles out there in the league. He's not getting paid a lot. It's a very great deal for the cap. I think, it's Jason Peters. The guy is a god in Philly.
Eventually you're going to...
Next year.
Eventually you're going to have to cut that umbilical cord. I mean, he's had 10 years in Philadelphia. Eventually, you're going to have to cut that umbilical cord.
I think you were ready last year.
I was ready last year. I was ready last year to not only move on from him, but I thought he would have some trade value. And then you can either have... Listen, Vaitai is serviceable, but if you notice during the Super Bowl run, when he had a week to prepare as the starter, he played better. When he just gets thrown into a game completely cold is when he struggles. So I was okay with maybe moving on from Jason Peters, because you probably could have gotten... What could you have gotten for JP? third, probably.
maybe. But
Maybe a third.
I think he's got Lurie floating around. That's one of his best friends, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think he was a protected man.
Yes, I was ready to move on and start exploring the future of the left tackle position last year. But here we are.
It's made a lot of time. You groom.
Listen, maybe he develops into something. Maybe he doesn't. Everybody keeps talking about the talent that he has. We saw him in preseason last year. Granted, it's against third and fourth string guys that aren't going to have a job. But still, technique is technique, and posture is posture, and footwork is footwork. And he checked all the boxes. I'm sorry, he looked dominant. But I realize the talent level. But they hung on to him they drafted him for a reason. They hung on to him for a reason. And yeah, maybe it's just one more year and then it's Mulata's turn.
I mean,
and he came out with a quote. He came out with a quote the other day, and I forget from where. So forgive me, but it was like he was closer to playing than people think he was. Like he was this close to getting into the lineup.
I would have loved to see it. I know Matt Pryor had a chance to play. He was ready to play at the end of the season, but like you look at Big V and then you look at Mulata, see what they have, but you're also in the draft. There's some guys there in the end of the first round, second round that you can bring at offensive tackle. I mean, those guys are there. They're going to be there. So I feel like the Eagles will address defensive line, perhaps offensive line in the draft. But moving across the line, another guy who has moved on, Stefan Wisniewski, a guy who, he had his moments here in Philly, was pretty serviceable. I know he was a little upset losing some playing time. The Eagles rewarded Sumala with a contract, so that seems to be their starting guard moving forward. How you feel about losing Wiz?
I mean, I'm okay with it. The contract for Isaac was very team friendly. It was dirt cheap, so there's no reason to really bitch about that one. Wiz was serviceable. He wasn't anything special. I think he was serviceable, but then again, you can find serviceable offensive linemen in the draft. You can find them in the third tier of free agency. Once upon a time, the Eagles brought in an offensive lineman that nobody really thought anything of, and a guy who maybe bounced around a little bit. I think the last team he played for was Denver, but we got him from Cincinnati, and that was Evan Mathis. I mean, that was a sort of third tier free agent signing, or maybe it was a trade. I don't even know where he came from, but when he was brought to the Eagles, I mean, it wasn't like, hey, here's your brand new starting guard, Evan Mathis. You know what I mean? He wasn't the dominant force that he was when he played with the Eagles, and then all of a sudden, he kind of stepped his game up. So serviceable interior offensive lineman can be found in the draft. Serviceable interior offensive lineman can be found on the streets. So in the name of making a little salary cap room, you let Wiz go? I mean, whatever. Okay, fine. I'm cool with it.
And then it's got to say something about Matt Pryor, his play, and their belief in that, the way they're developing him. They must feel okay about that. Moving on to Jordan Hicks. The news broke today, this afternoon, that Jordan Hicks signs with the Arizona Cardinals, gets I believe $20 million guaranteed. Deals are worth around like $36 million or something. Obviously, the guy's missed 21 regular season games. Dealt with ruptured Achilles, torn pec, calf issues, ankle issues. How do you feel about moving on from Jordan Hicks?
I mean, I felt like a lot of people thought he'd come back on a team-friendly deal. The problem is, I think the writing was on the wall with him pretty much. And something you got to understand, like, everybody gets overpaid in free agency. And even players with the injury histories get overpaid in free agency. So it was kind of interesting to see, people's reaction to the contract. People were like, well, not for that money. Well, honestly, what'd you expect? I mean, everybody gets paid, overpaid in free agency. I was pounding the table pretty hard for C.J. Mosley. And I said on my YouTube channel last night, the more I pound the table about it, the more my hand kind of hurts. and the more I realize that even though we're a 4-3 team, that really 70% of the time we're playing 4-3 nickel. There's only two linebackers on the field anyway. Bradham's kind of better suited for the middle than he is the outside. Camus, again, serviceable. So really, why would the Eagles dump that much money? And looking at what the New York Jets signed him to, I mean, absolutely, that
It's
wasn't even close
17
to
mil.
it. It would be nice to see the Eagles prioritize the linebacker position just a tad bit more. I mean, I feel like we as Eagles fans have been so pre-programmed and just used to this team devaluing the linebacker position to the point where they don't invest any draft stock or draft assets into it, where they don't really invest any big capital into it, albeit Nigel Bradham got his payday. But like, we haven't had a dominant presence at linebacker. The last time we did was 2006 with Jeremiah Trotter. D'Amico Ryans was good, but he got hurt. Jordan Hicks was good, but he got hurt. And then between that, you had the Casey Matthewses of the world and all that garbage. Linebackers are easy to take for granted up until you hit the point where you have a good one, and then you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. It's great to have a disruptive, game changing leader of a linebacker. But uh, the Eagles have a hole there as far as like the third linebacker position. Again, they're only playing that three linebackers probably 30% of the time, and they have zero depth. I mean, you have Nate Gary who can fill in a pinch, so they're going to have to address that one way or the other.
But you also look at
it'd be nice to see them put a little bit higher of a priority on the position.
But you also look at the Schwartz's ability to use the heavy dime package, and then also seeing what Nigel Bradham brought to the table when Hicks was out during the Super Bowl run. Nigel Bradham took a lot of those responsibilities, and then in our playoff run, you were seeing Nigel Bradham take all of the linebacker duties when we had three safeties on the field. So obviously they can't pour that money into that position and pay Hicks. Obviously, they're probably going to look for another linebacker. And I'd say this draft has only a couple top heavy guys in the first, and then there are a bunch of guys in day three that could be potential, coverage hybrid types. They love those safety linebacker types. So obviously you can look there. But
like the Mark Barron types that you were telling me about yesterday.
Yeah. Now looking at Mark Barron, he was recovering from Achilles a year ago. So he had a down year last year. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going to move on from that one. But moving forward, if there's one more play in Howie's bag of tricks, what move do you need to see?
I need them to see them bring in a veteran running back to kind of. I have all the confidence in the world they're going to take advantage of the 2 second-round picks that they have and spend one of them on a running back. Which one I couldn't tell you. That'd be a question for you, Gayle. But I have the utmost confidence that they will address it in the draft. But however, you heard Howie Roseman speak at the NFL Combine, and you heard Doug Peterson speak, and they spoke about the running back rotation being a formula for their success. It's something that's worked for them in the past. They're not going to get away from it. So there's a couple of second-tier free agent running backs that really are designed to be part of a stable. They're not the Le'Veon Bells, where it's running back. Not only do I think there'll be a veteran kind of signed in the next couple of days, and one will be drafted, but keep your eye out for those June 1st cuts. Like, there's going to be running backs that get dumped. Keep an eye out for them to try to, okay, who's going to be in the state? We know we need 3 of them. Right now they got Smallwood. Okay, Josh Adams needs to improve, but showed flashes. They need 3 starting running backs. So you draft one, you get a mid-tier free agent, and then you keep an eye out for the June 1st cuts and see what happens. So I think that's the last trick. I don't think they have anything huge coming out of the back pocket, but there could be like one more.
Yeah,
Way more exciting.
I think
Excited about.
Tevin Coleman might price himself out of our range. Maybe we're still waiting on for this
I was just gonna say that.
Le'Veon Bell.
Once Bell goes, he'll be the next big one. And
Yeah.
again, I can't stress this enough. People get like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you signed that." Everybody gets overpaid in free agency. It's just the way it is. I mean, who did the Saints just sign?
Yeah, the Saints.
The Saints just signed like Latavius Murray and gave him a decent. Yeah, and gave him a decent dollar. So again, this is why it's so important for these players to reach free agency, is because they know they're like, you're going to get your bag, man. You're going to make your money. That's going to set up yourself for, the rest of your life. All you have to do is just make it to free agency.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not sure if the Eagles are still looking at Duke Johnson, maybe trading one of those 4th-round picks, perhaps. I'm not sure yet. I could see a smaller tier move like that. If not, there's going to be backs in the draft in the 2nd round to look at. And then, LeGarrette Blount's still out there. You know what I mean? LeGarrette Blount's still out there.
Yeah, LeGarrette Blount, you're right. So maybe that's one of the guys that they bring back and they put back in the stable. But, when you just start talking about the draft, that's where you want to focus. That's where you're not going to find your 3-down back in free agency right now. You don't have a 3-down back on your roster right now. And so you draft a guy and you hope to develop him, or he has the potential to be that 3-down back. And then you don't have to have a stable of running backs. But you know what you're getting when you sign these free agents. There's no running back that has ever gone like all right, Gayle, just throwing it out there, because I can't think of one off the top of my head. Name the last running back to go to a team and then all of a sudden blow up.
What was that? Priest Holmes back in the day? Was he with the Ravens? Priest Holmes. And blew it up with KC.
Yeah, but okay, Marshawn Lynch, he was with the Bills and he was good with the Bills, and then got traded to the Seahawks. I can't think of a running back that just was half-assed, a free agent signing, and then blew up to be this multi-third down, 1,000-yard rush. I just can't think of it. You have to find them in the draft. That's your best chance to find them in the draft.
Yeah, that was Priest Holmes. He went from the Ravens, went to KC, rushed for 1,500 yards. The next year, 1,600 yards. Next year, 1,400 yards. Crazy.
For those people in the comments, that's your homework assignment. Find examples of running backs who maybe had 3 years of mediocre stats, went to another team, and just blew the roof off the place.
I mean, it's rare.
It's rare.
It's rare. Yeah. But right now, I'm feeling all right. I'm pretty gassed on the first 2 signings. I'm okay with those 2 signings. If those are the key signings, I'm okay with that. We just now go into the draft. Best player available. We got JP locked up. We got the D tackle locked up. Now it's just I still want to hit those trenches and get more players. Anything more from you?
I feel you. Now, I'll circle back to my the first sentence out of my mouth, which was, these signings make a lot of sense for what the Eagles are trying to do, and they help explain a lot of the struggles that they had last season. Again, the interior pressure, huge part of the defense, and had a trickle-down effect to everything. The fact that they didn't have Mike Wallace, or at least a receiver that can keep the defense honest, to keep the RPO game going, to free up Zach Ertz, to free up Alshon Jeffrey, was a huge problem last year. So these 2 signings address 2 major issues last year that I hope, with a combination of a really good draft, and they have to nail the draft. They have to nail it. I'll say it again. They have to nail it, because this championship window can close just as quick as it opened. If the 2 signings that they just did, plus I'm sure they'll do another one, plus a solid draft, means, man, we're right back in the driver's seat next year. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling good. There's more news to come. We might have to do another video later when they sign Le'Veon Bell, maybe. I'm just kidding. We're not signing.
I hope I'm feeling a little bit better, because right now I'm sick as a dog. So, Gayle, I appreciate you taking the lead on it. And number 2, I hope the connection's a little better to make these videos a little easier on us.
All right, Eagle fans, we'll see you guys later. We just wanted to stop in real quick and give our thoughts about some of these off-season moves here.